Hello everybody, my name is Spyfire here, and today I'm going to bring you my build that I use every single day. Yes, that damage meter in the corner there is correct, 45,000 DPS on a training dummy that I just did. So let's do this one by one. Firstly, we have the Automaton's Jack, and if you want to grab it, all you got to do is go to Dark Shade Cavern. This set can be picked up very quickly. The thing you're going to have the most difficulty with is getting the Imperial Warhammer. At least I did. I couldn't quite get it. This is the unique item. So I spent time trying to get the unique item for the set because if I'm going to wear the set, I'm going to wear the unique item as well. The Automaton set here will grant us 657 crit chance. This will also grant us another 1000 stamina, a 129 weapon and spell damage, and this will also add 400 weapon and spell damage to our physical and bleed abilities. That is very important for this build, and we'll get into why. Next, we have Tozovgans. Does get overrode by a large amount of our abilities here, but that's fine. The 5 set on this is fantastic. I use it. I also have a backup if you prefer a different style of play. You can play with the Briarheart set that I have here. But let's go into Tozovgans real quickly. Tozovgans is a 634 crit chance twice. Then you have an extra 1,400 offensive penetration. When you deal critical damage, we will gain a stack of precision. This will increase our critical chance by 170 for 5 seconds. It stacks up to 10 stacks. At max stacks, you also gain minor force, which will increase our critical damage done by 10%. Now, like I said, this does get overridden by one of our abilities later. However, this is a Warden build, so we're going to be using a lot of crit and a lot of just, stacking buffs. Stacking buffs are the name of the game here. Our next thing is I'm actually running the Maelstrom Battle Axe, which will sadly cut off our automaton's 5 piece whenever I'm using this. However, this is just more of a jump item. This one was kind of just for setup. A lot of the abilities on the back bar, this is going to just be buffs and debuffs for the enemies. So I'm not really too concerned about losing that buff on it. However, whenever we do use critical charge, we'll grant a bleed effect onto the enemy for 7 seconds. It's about a 6,500 bleed damage, and it does scale off of your higher weapon or spell damage. Next, we have Celine's. Celine's is a set that I've been using for quite a long time. It's 1,000 extra max stamina. Whenever we deal a martial melee attack, we'll call upon a spirit that mauls the closest enemy. It'll do about 5,000 damage, and it can occur every 6 seconds. This is a great way to just boost DPS up for any build that's really lacking. This will just grant you an extra, you know, 5k overall if you really want it. The other set that I'll use for this build is the Infernal Guardian. This will grant us an extra maximum magicka, which you'll see why that's kind of important later. This will also, whenever we apply a damage shield to ourselves or an ally, we'll have a 50% chance to lob 3 mortars over 2 seconds to the furthest enemy from us. That's a good amount of flame damage in a 5-meter radius. I use this whenever we're dealing with large trash packs. However, Ice Heart can prove better sometimes. Ice Heart is critical chance, and as well as whenever I deal critical damage, I have a 20% chance to gain a damage shield that absorbs about 5,000 and deal 1,000 frost damage every second within 5 meters for, I think, 5-6 seconds. Balrog is another set that is fantastic. This one's a bit more difficult to get. However, if you really want it, it's worth it. 124 extra weapon and spell damage, and when we use an ultimate ability, we'll gain weapon and spell damage equal to the amount of the total used, and physical and spell penetration equal to 23 times the amount used for 12 seconds. Another set that I recommend if you're not sure of what you are going to go against, if it's going to be trash packs that are AoE or even just single target fights that might have things coming in, Stormfist is a great selection here for this build. Celine's is a fantastic single target set, however, Stormfist can pass it up. Whenever we deal damage, we'll have a 10% chance to create a Thunder Fist to crush the enemy that will deal 1,000 shock damage every second for 3 seconds to enemies within 4 meters. The final will do 13,000 physical damage when the fist closes, and that can occur every 8 seconds, and we do plenty of damage over time effects that this procs all of the time. Now, I would like to go in and say that I am wearing 1 piece of heavy out of this entire thing. The reason I'm wearing 1 piece of heavy is so that we can pick up a couple passives to increase our health. This build doesn't have a lot of health recovery and stat recovery, so it's very important that we, try to, take as much as we can whenever it comes to it. So going into the heavy armor, see we have taken increase our health recovery by 4%, an extra 108 magicka and stamina whenever we take damage. We'll also increase our max health by 2%, and as well as increasing our magicka and stamina from our heavy attacks, restoring by 4% for each piece worn. And in the medium armor skill tree, this is our main one, so we're going to be running all of them. So we're going to increase our critical damage by 12%. We're going to increase our stamina recovery by 24%. Our stamina cost will also go down by 12%. We'll be able to sneak 42% better, and 30% less detection whenever we're sneaking, which is not exactly useful, but for this build, you can find some uses for it. Agility will increase our weapon and spell damage by 2% for each piece worn, that's 12%. And it will increase our movement speed of sprint by 18%, and our roll dodge will cost 24% less. Going into the weapons, we are using two-handed, two two-handers. I feel like this is the best for this build. So our light and heavy attacks will damage up to 3 nearby enemies for 50% of the damage inflicted upon the primary target. We'll also be running axes and maces. Axes for our critical jump, as well as a mace here for our carve. That will grant us a 12% extra increase critical damage done on our back bar, as well as 3,300 extra penetration on our main bar. We'll also reduce the cost of our stamina abilities by 15%. Whenever we complete a fully charged heavy attack, our next direct damage attack used within 7% used within 7 seconds deals an additional 10% damage. Increases our stamina recovery by 30% whenever we kill a target for 10 seconds. Going into the passives here, we have decided to take all the animal companion passives. We have most of the green balance passives, as well as 2 passives from the Winter's Embrace, but however, we will be buffing this up whenever I reach level 50 on it. However, it is just a slow grind right now. Now, instead of going through all the passives of the Warden skill tree, instead what I'll go ahead and do is I'll talk about the ones that are most important to this build. Firstly, Advanced Species, increasing our damage done by 2% for each animal companion slotted. This right here will increase our Magicka and Stamina recovery by 12% if an animal companion ability is slotted. The Winter's Embrace, Piercing Cold, will increase our magical and frost damage by 5%. We have a 200% chance to apply Chilled with Winter's Embrace abilities, and enemies who are chilled take 10% more critical damage. Next, we have Accelerated Growth. Accelerated Growth, whenever we heal ourselves or an ally under 40% health with a Green Balance ability, we will gain Major Mending, increasing our healing done by 16% for 4 seconds. Emerald Moss, increasing our healing done with green balance abilities by 2%, as well as whenever we activate a heal on ourselves or an ally, the target will grant minor toughness, increasing our max health by 10% for 20 seconds. That is fantastic, and I will get into why now. So let's go through our abilities, the main abilities that we're going to be using, and then I'm going to roll back and I'm going to talk about some very good alternatives that you can use depending on the situation. Firstly, we're going to be running Carve. Carve is a great ability. This also procs a damage shield, which, as we talked about earlier, can use with Ice Heart. This right here is a 2,000 stamina, a 6-meter radius. It will apply a 6,000 damage bleed in front of us. This will also cause them to bleed for 7,500 bleed damage over 12 seconds. The bleed can stack 3 times, so make sure you keep that up. Growing Swarm is the next ability. This will cause them to bleed for 12,804 damage over 10 seconds. This will also apply minor vulnerability, increasing damage taken by 5%. The enemy will now become a carrier, and any enemy within 5-meter radius will take half the damage taken by him. This can be utilized in a very great way where you can use Growing Swarm and you can put it on one guy and then put it on the one next to him. Then they're both taking one Fetcher Fly to themselves and an extra Fetcher Fly between them. If there is a double boss or a large pack, you can basically just make everyone take a full Growing Swarm damage while 2 people are taking 2. Next, we have Executioner. This is a 50% execution, which will deal 400% more damage if they're under 50%. This is my main spammable as soon as they fall. I basically just kind of keep my buffs up until they go to 50% and then slam, slam, slam. Green Lotus is next. We have Embracing the Lotus, which will grant our light and heavy attacks to restore health to us. This is why we took the Green Balance Maturation passive. This will increase our health by 10%, which will increase our survivability in dungeons. Aside from the healing aspect of this, will also grant Major Savagery, increasing our weapon critical rating by 2,624 for 20 seconds. Next, we're going to be running Bull Netch. Bull Netch is a staple for every Warden, pretty much. It's major brutality and sorcery, increasing our weapon damage by 20%. And every 5 seconds, the Netch will remove one negative effect from us and restore 5,000 stamina to us over 25 seconds, which is not a lot, but it's more than most classes will get. For the ultimate, we actually will be using Wild Guardian. No brainer, right? A Warden build with the Feral Guardian. This Guardian is just, there's nothing better in my opinion. For a Warden, you just nothing else can compare necessarily. I mean, it deals 2,500 physical damage, and sometimes will swipe at all enemies, dealing 10,000 physical damage, and stuns for 2 seconds. Once the Grizzly's out, you can use your ultimate 75 to cause the bear to charge the enemy and deal another 10,000 damage, and will deal 100% more damage to enemies below 25% health. This is a great way of getting extra execute damage whenever you're at the boss. Whenever on the boss itself. And since mine over here is at 50% and his is at 25%, it's not going to really conflict too much. Next, we're going to be running Mystic Orb. Mystic Orb is a Magicka ability that we're going to be utilizing here on this build. There are a few other abilities that you can use. However, I think this is the best one, even though, Magicka is kind of a complicated matter here. We don't really have a lot of Magicka, but with Winter's Embrace passives, we can at least do some pretty good magical damage where other classes might not be able to on a stamina build. This will deal about 1,300 magic damage every second to the nearby enemies. An ally can activate the globe, and that will deal 7,500 magic damage to nearby enemies and restore 4,000 magicka or stamina to them, whichever is their main stat. Stampede, we're going to be using this with the Maelstrom Axe. The reason we're using it with the Maelstrom Axe is because whenever we use Critical Charge, we will cause the enemy to bleed for an extra 6,500 bleed over 7 seconds. And so that's why it's on the back bar here. Stampede, we're going to charge at them. We're going to deal 5,000 physical damage to them, all enemies nearby. This attack is always a critical strike, which is great for using Tazavgans if you really, really need to get the 10th stack. After reaching our target, we're going to sunder the ground beneath us. This will deal 1,700 damage to all enemies in the area every second for 10 seconds. This will also reapply the Maelstrom Battle Axe's bleed. Subterranean Assault is next. Subterranean Assault is another Warden staple. We will deal 10,000 500 poison damage, and then afterwards they'll go under the ground, and after 10 seconds, once again, burrow up and deal another 10,500 poison damage. Barb Trap. This one here is the one that overrides Tazavigans a little bit. However, it is something that I swap out. These two abilities here get swapped out quite regularly, so let's just go into it. This adds another bleed for us, really. But during the early parts of fighting the boss, this can be great to just get minor force right away instead of having to wait for Tazavigans to build up. This is a trap, so whenever it gets laid on the ground, it's 1.5 seconds to arm. It lasts for 15 seconds. When it's triggered, the trap will deal 3,700 bleed damage and an additional 10,000 bleed damage over 12 seconds, which will grant us major force, increasing our critical weapon damage done by 10%. Enemies who activate the trap are also immobilized for 2 seconds, which is a great way of locking down enemies that you otherwise can't. Next, we're going to be running Winter's Avenge, another Magico ability. This is so that we can proc Glacial Presence. Glacial Presence will increase our critical damage done by 10% again, so that's a fantastic way of just getting that. And since I'm running an axe, I actually have 12% more critical damage on this right here than I do over here, so that just kind of makes up the difference. However, whenever we use it, it will deal 1,700 frost damage every 1 second for 12 seconds, and enemies hit will also be slowed by 30%, another way of closing off or locking down enemies from reaching you right away. So now that I've talked about the abilities that I utilize, I'd like to go in and talk about some abilities that may be beneficial for you. Depending on what you're doing, and I'll give you some examples as to where these things can be useful. Firstly, would be Cutting Dive. I find this is most useful in PvP. It is a bleed damage, and then once you hit them more than 7 meters away, you'll set them off balance. Hitting them again will apply a bleed. The way I do the math on this is kind of wrong, I know, but you just got to count it as extra birds. As you can see, the bleed damage from the extra bleed gained from Cutting Dive is equal to or greater than around 1 bird worth of damage. So if you really want to calculate it, 9 birds casted will reach the maximum of 7 bird stacks, and so you'll do 7 birds of damage for your 9 birds casted. Next is leeching vines. This is a great way to buff up whenever you're using like duos or 3 people instead of a full group or whatever to clear things. This will grant us vines. The vines will heal us for 1,500 health each time we take damage, as well as minor lifesteal to the enemy for 10 seconds, healing us and allies for 600 health every second when we damage them. It's a great way of just sustaining. Enchanted Grove is another ability I would use if you're running with a group that has low recovery. Any target that is healed from this effect, which the heal is not that major, but any heal that we do will increase their minor intellect and minor endurance, increasing their magical and stamina recovery by 15% for 20 seconds, as well as, remember, maturation, which will also increase their maximum health by 10% for 20 seconds. So this is a great way of buffing up a party that may otherwise not survive on their own. Next, we have Expansive Frostcloak. This is just grab because you never know when you might need it. Major Resolve is fantastic for any build out there, and sometimes you might just get hit too hard. This right here will wrap a thick ice around us, which will grant us 6,000 extra resistance for 20 seconds. And remember, it is a 28-meter radius, so everyone in the party gets it. Next is Frozen Device. This will summon an ancient portal, which after 1.5 seconds will trigger, and it will teleport the enemy to me, immobilize them, and deal 4,000 frost damage. This will also apply Major Maim, reducing their damage done by 10% for 4 seconds. We can have 3 of these active at a time. This is great whenever you have a team that you can rely on and shuffle people around in case you necessarily need to. Another ability I'd like to go into is Dizzying Swings. This applies off balance, which can be utilized even more so whenever you're using the birds. Hitting an enemy that's off balance will apply a stun, so a stun's great, and targets that are immune to off balance will be snared for 40% for 2 seconds, so that's great for you as well. I also have been using Consuming Trap recently. This here deals 9,000 magic damage or 11,000 physical damage, and that's for the entire thing. It will also do physical, but it casts with Magicka. So if you are a physical caster, this can be great. This is Soul Trap, it's a morph of it. This will deal, for me, 11,000 physical damage over 10 seconds. It's another damage over time effect, which I really love. So once the target dies, we'll fill an empty soul gem if we have one and heal for 4,000 health. We'll also restore 3,000 magicka and 5,000 stamina. This is a great way of keeping yourself sustaining if you don't have high sustain on a build. Just a great way to maintain yourself, especially whenever you're fighting large packs. Circle of Protection is an ability that I've utilized a few times while in parties. This here is a minor protection and minor endurance buff. This will reduce the damage taken by 5% and increase our stamina recovery by 15% for the whole party, as long as they're standing within the circle. I've had to utilize this a few times, however, I haven't quite seen a use for it recently. Your mileage on this may vary on if it's useful for you or not, but this is something that you might want to carry around just in case you might need it. Another ability I have here is Resolving Vigor. This will heal us for 13,000 over 4 seconds. This is a stamina heal, and you don't see very many of those. So if you're a stamina caster, go to the Assault Tree and pick this up. I also have Aggressive Horn here. I'm not the one who usually uses this, but I do carry it just in case, even though most of the people I run with in my group use this otherwise, and I don't have to. As well as don't forget to pick up Continuous Attack. I say this in every single build guide that I make. This is a fantastic thing, even for open world, which will grant you major gallop at all times, increasing your mount speed by 30%. Now, going into the racials here, I am a Khajiit. Last time that you guys saw this character, it was a Redguard. Well, I've decided to go ahead and change it. The main reason is this here, which is where is it? Here we go, Feline Ambush. This will increase our critical damage and healing by 12%. This is a crit build, so we need the extra crit. If we can take it, we're gonna take it, as well as increasing our maximum health, magicka, and stamina by 1,000, which is more beneficial to me than just 2,000 stamina, since I do utilize a few magical abilities. See, Lotus is even magicka as well, and having that extra magicka is just a no-brainer for me. This will also increase our health recovery by 100 and our stamina and magicka recovery by 85. Recovery stats are basically king on a lot of things, so, make sure you utilize them the best you can. Now let's go into our stats here. As you can see, we don't have a lot of resistance. We have about an 18% less damage taken from most things. That's not very high. My sprint speed is 161%. Our block mitigation is 51%, so that's basically not really going to do much there. We have a break free cost, which is really expensive at 5,000. We have a roll dodge cost at 3,000, a block cost of 1,500, and a bash cost of 800, roughly. Um, that's a lot of this is just built for damage. I hadn't taken into account a lot of these, and so as we're going into it, the longer I play, the more I'll probably put into stuff like this. But I just can't find a place to really build into defense right now. Going down here, as you can see, our critical damage is 51%, but if we rotate over, we have 63%, which will put us at roughly 113% critical damage done. That's why we run with Dazavigans. That's why we run with, Barb Trap. This is why we run with Winter's Revenge. We really want to buff that up, and if we can buff it up here, then whenever we rotate over, we'll have it for our main core abilities. Don't forget that as a warden, we do gain frost and magic damage flat percentage. Right now it says 11%, so that's just great. An extra damage is always great. We also have a critical healing ratio that is equal to our basic, which is 51%. We don't gain the extra 12% from the axe on it, so just be aware of that. 51% critical healing chance or critical healing ratio is great. Even whenever we're not a healer build, I can still use some of my heals to get 10k, 20k heals off of them, and more healing for the party whenever I do take healing abilities. You can see that my physical and spell penetration are a little bit low when it comes to my axe specifically. That's fine. The reason for it is that, the tank that I run with quite regularly already has minor breach for me, as well as like I said, that side of this is just whatever, and I am currently building up to build more penetration on this right here. I would recommend at least getting to 6,000 penetration if you can. I've cut it a little bit close here, and I understand that, but that's okay for me, and I see no real loss when it comes to it because my back bar is just for getting started. So we are going to be using a food, and the food I'm using right now is the, let me find it. Give me 1 second. Right now, I'm using jugged rabbit and preserves. This is a tri-stat food. You can find this really, really, really cheaply anywhere out in the world from trade guilds and stuff like that. That is my overall stat one. However, I'll typically eat lava foot soup. Lava foot soup granting us an extra 500 stamina recovery is just unbeatable in my opinion for this kind of build. However, if you're running into magical issues, which I can sometimes, I would rather have Tri-Stat over recovery. Let's go into our maximum stats here with the food that we have. Remember that it's about 4,000 less if you want to just take the food without, if you don't want to use the food. So it is 3,000 maximum stamina, 25,000 maximum health, as well as a maximum magicka of 17,000. When it comes to our recovery stats, we have 671 magicka recovery, we have a health recovery of 737, and a stamina recovery of 1,400. Our spell damage and weapon damage are both 3,000. We also have a physical resistance of 12,000 for both physical and spell. Our critical resistance is baseline. We don't have any critical resistance on this build. We'll also be using the Shadow Boon, which will increase our critical damage and healing by 17%. Going into the next part of the build guide, we're going to be going through the champion points. Like I said, this is my daily build. This is what I run all the time. So let's go through and talk about what I have here. So we're going to increase our gold found by 4%. We're going to increase our gold found in chests by 10%, increasing our crafting inspiration by 10%. And this will improve our chances of extracting woodworking, blacksmithing, clothing, and jewelry crafting ingredients. This is my main crafter as well, so that's part of why this is all focused on crafting. Reducing the time it takes to harvest by 10%, well, 50% for me. and we'll also have a 50% chance to gain double yield from normal resources, as well as a 20% bonus movement speed. So here's where I think it gets a lot more interesting. We're going to be going through the blue tree here, and this will grant us 160% critical chance per stage. This is 320 critical chance. And this right here is increasing our critical damage and critical healing done by 2% per stage. That's 10%. Wrathful Strikes will increase our weapon and spell damage by 163 for our damaging abilities. We're going into Piercing over here, and Piercing we're going to be taking all the way up here, but we're 7 points away currently, so whenever that happens, that'll happen. We'll have 700 instead of 350. However, right now we have 350 offensive penetration. So this is a must-have part of the build here. Battle Mastery. This will increase your chance to apply martial status effects by 30% per stage, and that's 60%. So that's a great chance of applying bleed. Increasing our damage done by area of effect attacks by 2% per stage. We use area of effect attacks all the time on this build, as well as increasing our damage done with over time effects by 10% as well. Now, going over to our next thing here, we're going to be building into Fortified. I would like to have more armor rating, so here we have 550 extra armor. And yeah, so here's Sprinter, increasing our cost of sprint by 20% per stage. We're going to go ahead and take an extra 4%, as well as a 10% here on movement speed. Going over here, we're going to grab ourselves an extra 560 max health. We're also going to grant ourselves 1,500 stamina whenever we kill an enemy. That's great for sustain. We also have grant ourselves 30 health recovery for every 10 ultimate we have. We shuffle ultimate quite regularly, but it's nice to have it when we have it. And reduces the cost of break free by 110 stamina per stage. Since we're going to be holding on to the bear ultimate itself for quite a long time, not always we want to hold on to it, but we're not going to want to use it if we don't have to because of it being able to do more damage at a 25% ratio. This right here does help us. We're not always going to want to use our bear ultimate so that we can sustain and survive longer. And while that might sound a little weird to do, the bear does good damage on his own. And if they're not under 25%, there's not really much reason to use it, the ultimate again. And that's the way I think about it. I mean, you can use it at 50% typically and then gain enough to get it back by 25% of a boss, especially in veteran. However, just think about it how you want it. I prefer not to use the bear ultimate that often. I use it here and there, but typically if I'm gonna use it, it's either to send the bear somewhere else or whenever they're at 25% health. All right, everyone, and that has been the build guide. Like I said, this build guide does produce a character that is pretty formidable. I will see you guys in just a second. I'm going to go show you guys on a training dummy. All right, everyone, so here we are in the guild hall of my guild that I'm in here. Great guild. They have a trial Atronach here, and I'm just going to go ahead. And I know that this will buff me whenever I get close and start attacking it, but I feel like it's important to go ahead and take best case scenario into this whenever we're talking about damage numbers, and most guilds will ask you to produce numbers on a Iron Atronach anyway. So let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to go ahead and apply our bleeds first. That way, whenever we go to reapply them here in a second, they will still be useful. So we gone ahead and buffed ourselves up, and since snapshotting is a thing here, we can just rotate ourselves in and out. And we're going to go ahead and remember, keep your buffs active. Go ahead and I would like to reapply that. Go ahead and yep. And you guys can see here, this is just how the build works as is. You just want to keep rotating back and forth between your main bar and your off bar. And yeah, as long as you keep it active, you can basically just keep this going all day. And the lower they get, the more damage we're gonna do. So as soon as they hit 50% HP, you guys can definitely see an upgrade. And I'm gonna go quiet for a minute, and I will show you guys whenever I get this down to 50%. Alright everyone, so we've taken him down to 50%. My damage is going to go down for a second because I'm walking away, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my weapons are enchanted, so let's go ahead and charge them. I think one of them did run out of charge, and I'm going to show you how much damage this build can do whenever we start attacking from 50%. So let's go over here and use, there we go, the Ethereal Well. And we're going to walk through these, yeah, right there, and here we go. So what we're going to do first is, like I said, we're going to run in, but we can really engage how we want here. So we're going to go ahead and apply our, yep, and there we go, and put down that, and put down this, and this. Oops, forgot about that. Now, like I said, so here we go. This is when damage starts to get a little wild. And we're going to go ahead and put that down, put this down, grab that. Alright, reapply our buffs. We let them fall off. That's on me. Go ahead and, yep. Alright, reapply our debuffs. Now, what the thing is, you want to really catch ahead of your debuffs if you can. So there we go. We're now allowed to really DPS as we want. The best thing to do is to worry not so much about every debuff whenever we get to this phase. You're not going to be able to catch up completely. However, you know, just make sure you rotate them in. There we go. Use Blessed Shards. We're going to go ahead, reapply our debuffs. We don't want that stacking carve buff to fall off the best we can. Make sure we put down our traps and everything else, and then, you know, just keep yourself active on this build. This build really is an active build. You have to keep up with it. It will get away from you if you don't. Alright, drop that, drop here. Oops. That was my mistake. I didn't press the button hard enough. And there we go. We're going to keep going. And the lower health he gets, the more damage we're going to do. Now the bear is, I've been saving him for whenever he does fall below the range. We're going to go ahead, apply that first. And go ahead, boop. And there we go. And yep. Now he should be falling pretty soon, so I'm going to go ahead and use the ultimate. I know that it's not perfect use here, but go ahead and use it. Yep. Don't forget to reapply our buffs. Now I do have kind of a high ping right now, even though for most of us this is just normal, isn't it? Yep, there we go. So he's under 20%. This is where we're really going to be doing the most damage with our execute. We're going to go ahead and use Blessed Shards again. Reapply our minor vulnerability. Reapply that. Reapply this. Put down these. And don't forget to buff again. Go ahead. And here we go. Go ahead, use Bear. Let Bear take some of it. He wants some of the glory too. Drop down this. Like I said, just keep your buffs active if you want to provide this kind of damage with it. You really want to just stay active as much as possible. You don't want to leave yourself out. And uptime on debuffs is very, very important. That's why, you know, it kind of sucks that this build is so heavy on short cooldowns. Because I can't really do much about that. I have to kind of rotate in and out quite often. But it is just one of the unfortunate things that come with this build. However, as you can see, I think it is outweighed by the potential damage. Alright, go ahead and reapply all of our debuffs again, and now it's time we can go in. Right. And I think we can kill it before our buffs go away. Boom. And there you guys go. So, if you guys are interested in a build like this or any of the other builds that we have on the channel, please check out the channel down below. Click the like, click the subscribe, you know, all the things that help us in the algorithm and get the word out about these kind of builds. This build is my main build. This is the build I use every single day in my ESO play style, and this is the way that I personally like my character. If you guys don't like the way this character is made, tell me down below and I'll get to work on a video for you guys as well. However, if you do like to see more about these kind of wardens, and my progression, you can really go back and look from the first build guide that we did with the Warden to now. It has really just evolved over time, and this is my main class. Like I said, I play the Warden every single day, and this is the kind of damage numbers that I provide. So if you want to be like this, play the Warden class with me. I know that many people aren't playing the Warden class, but I enjoy it, and I hope you guys do too. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So thank you all for watching. This has been Spy once more, and yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.